So today we're going to cover how to tell if your hive is queenless. Now if you're new to beekeeping, it can be quite a challenge to work that out because there's some obvious signs and there's also some less obvious signs. Now the first thing to do is have a look at your hive from the outside. If you notice the population dropping, then your hive could be in late stage queenlessness. Your hive could be in late stage queenlessness. So but if you can detect it a lot earlier, then you could rectify the problem before your colony is in a state of being basically dying out. So what we're going to do is blow a little smoke into the hive. We don't need much because this colony is weak. Now, as per usual, make sure you're wearing a good bee suit. Some people do have severe allergic reactions to bees. So when you put your veil on, make sure it's all done up. Making sure these zippers touch in the middle and the velcro's down. Have your gloves at the ready. If you're new to beekeeping, wear your gloves as well. Next thing we're going to do is take off the lid of the hive. So I'm just going to lift that off like that and put the lid aside. Levering off the inner cover with your hive tool. This hive tool comes with the suit and jacket that we supply. So straight away I can see there's quite a lot of bees in here, so it's not obviously queenless, but we know this hive is because we've looked in it recently. So let's cover a few of the things that you're going to tell. Let's cover a few of the things to help you tell whether you have a queen. Now the very first one is the behaviour of the colony. A queenless hive will typically have a higher note when you open the hive, like the hiss of the bees will be a higher pitch than a queen right hive. Now also your hive could be more aggressive. Typically a queenless hive is a little bit more defensive. This hive, however, is a pretty friendly hive. So just in case, looking at your inner cover, you want to check that there isn't a queen present on your inner cover. And now putting this at the entrance, just in case you've missed a queen, any remaining bees can crawl back up into the hive. The next thing we're going to do is start taking out some frames and having a look at them. So I'm just applying a little bit of smoke where I'm working so I don't squash any bees with the hive tool. With the hook under the end of the frame, we're gently pulling the frame up, nice and gentle on the first frame, so we don't want to roll any bees. And that could be the common cause of losing your queen, is pulling out a frame and she gets squished as the frame comes out. So straight away, I was expecting brood in the middle of this hive, but there is no brood present. You've got a bit of honey around here and empty in this section. Typically in the centre of a colony, you'll see brood in the frames. The next thing to look for is eggs. So I'm looking down the cells, looking for a tiny grain of rice in the bottom of the cells. I can't see any of those either. So they're the two major signs of not having a queen. No eggs means you don't have a laying queen, and no brood means that there hasn't been a queen laying in the last 11 days. So eggs or larvae. If you've got eggs or larvae in the bottom of the cells, then you've probably got a good laying queen, unless those larvae are drone larvae. What can happen if your hive has been queenless for some time is the workers actually start laying eggs, and they will lay them in kind of random patterns and kind of lay them on the walls of the cells, and sometimes even 2 eggs in one cell, and that's a sign that the workers are laying, and that means you also don't have a laying queen. Okay, so I'm just going to put that frame aside. Another thing to look for is queen cups. Generally, if a hive is queenless, they'll raise their own queen, but to do that they need eggs or larvae under 3 days old. And if they don't have the resources or don't get it together, then they won't raise a queen and your hive will slowly die out. So here you can see a queen cup. So what we're going to do is have a close look inside that queen cup to look for eggs or larvae. Now, with queen cups you need to be very careful, because if you dislodge the baby larvae, what you'll find is that she may die. So never shake a frame with queen cells on it. So we're looking down the bottom of that cell now, and it's totally dry. There is no egg, there is no larvae. So that's simply a cup hoping that a queen will lay an egg in there. So I'm going to put that frame aside just by leaning it up against the edge of the hive, and then keep looking through the hive to see if there is any brood anywhere. It's going sideways now and then up, so you don't squash any bees. And again, there is no brood, there is no eggs, and there is no larvae. So we're starting to think, yes, this hive is definitely queenless. Now, we recognised this hive was queenless a week ago, so what we did was introduce a frame from another hive. So we're going to have a look at that frame now to see if they've raised their own queen. So that's something you can do to fix the problem, is introduce a frame from another hive with eggs or larvae under 3 days old, or even better, a queen cell waiting to emerge. So let's have a look and see if they've built a queen cell. So you can see here, right where my finger is, there's a queen cup, and we'll have to have a look down in there to see whether there's any larvae. So it can be hard to see, you've got to get the light just right down the cells and get the bees away. But it doesn't look like there is a queen in there. There's no larvae and no eggs. There's quite a lot of brood, because 1 week ago exactly, we put this frame in, and the bees have gone ahead and capped those cells. Now they spend 11 days in the capped phase, so we should expect for a few more days to see brood on this frame. So that's what brood looks like if your colony has a laying queen. But we put this frame inside the hive from another hive so that they could hopefully make another queen. You can see right where my thumb is, there's a baby bee emerging. Such a wonderful thing to be looking in and learning. There's another one just over here which is chewed away a bit more, just where my thumb is. There's another queen cup on the edge here, and it's also dry. So we've attempted to rescue this colony by giving it a frame of brood from another hive so that they can then raise a queen from eggs or larvae under 3 days old. But it looks like they've failed in doing that, so we're going to have to come up with a plan B. Another option is you can buy a queen. Now if you can get hold of a queen quickly, that's the best thing to do, because that'll put you a month ahead. Because by the time they raise a queen, it's going to be 16 days, and then there might be a couple of weeks of mating flights before she starts laying, depending on the weather. So introducing a queen is the best thing to do if you want to get your hive going again at this point. However, if you don't have a queen breeder near you, then you can get a frame of brood from another hive and hopefully they'll raise a queen, but it hasn't worked this time. Failing all of that, as a last resort, you could merge the colony with another one. Of course, you do risk spreading any disease that might be in this hive with your good hive. Now, if you decide to do that, then there's some tricks in doing that, and it's to put a sheet of newspaper so they slowly chew through it. And we'll show you that in another video. So I'm going to keep pulling out frames. And again, no eggs, no larvae. So we're pretty sure we don't have a queen, and we've seen no sign of them raising one either. So I'm looking down the cells for little grains of rice, and I'm also looking for signs of laying workers, where they'll lay eggs on the cell walls, and sometimes 2 eggs in a cell. If your hive's been queenless for some time, the workers may start laying eggs, and those eggs will turn into drones because they're unfertilized. Oh, hello. Here we have baby larvae down the cells. Okay, so it was worth going through, keeping on looking, because we have found baby larvae, and hopefully they're worker larvae. And there's more over here. So now I'm having a really good look for eggs around. We should see some around here. They're in smaller size cells. If they're in these cells, I'd say they're more likely to be drones. And I can see eggs right down the bottom in the middle of the cell. So this hive has saved itself and raised another queen. Little grains of rice in the bottom of the cell, nice and in the middle. So it looks like the queen's only been laying for maybe 4 or 5 days. So the ideal situation is your bees look after themselves, raise a new queen, and off they go. And that happens quite regularly without you even knowing. But it's a good idea to stay tuned in, because if you recognise the signs that they don't have a queen, you may be able to fix up that problem and they'll raise one. You may be able to fix up that problem and stop them from dying out.
So should we look for the queen, or if anyone has questions?
So if anyone has questions, put them in the comments below, and also let us know what you'd like us to cover next week. We're here to help you learn, help you get started in beekeeping.
Helga would like to know if the introduced frame from the other hive had succeeded in producing a new queen, wouldn't she take off to mate, and then would she return to the hive herself to keep producing, or would it be possible that you would lose her?
So the queen on her mating flight will always return to the same hive. So once they've raised a queen, when she's still skinny enough to fly, she will then take off on it, usually a couple of mating flights. Now in that time she will collect enough sperm from enough drones to go through 6 years of laying up to a couple of thousand eggs a day, which is absolutely extraordinary. And she will always come back to the same hive.
Where would you buy a queen?
So buying a queen, you buy them off a queen breeder. So you can usually look that up online, and then it's a case of ordering them. Sometimes there's quite a delay because they either don't have queens ready to go, or they've got too many orders. So it's sometimes hard to get a queen right away. So let's take a look at another frame now that we've seen there's evidence of a queen. So far, no eggs on this frame. So it's interesting, she's only just started laying on one frame. But glad we noticed it before we rushed out and tried to buy a queen.
Someone would like to know, how does a queen disappear?
So there could be quite a number of reasons why a queen would disappear. One is she's been accidentally squashed while you've been beekeeping. Another is, let's say you've opened the inner cover and you've put it over here, and she's been orphaned from the hive and she might not make it back in. When she's in that egg laying mode, she can't fly. She can only crawl because she's too heavy. So she might not make it back into the hive if you've left her orphan. Other reasons could be perhaps she wasn't performing very well and the bees bumped her off. That happens, but generally they've got another one on the way if they're going to do that. Okay, there is a couple of eggs on this frame, right down in this region. So that's good to see. She's only just getting started, so somewhere in here it does look like we have a laying queen, which is fantastic news. However, they have been queenless for some time.
Queen spotting challenge on.
So spotting the queen is a nice thing to do. However, signs of the queen by eggs or larvae is good enough. You know she's there. My sister Mira behind the camera, she's a bit of an expert queen spotter. So let's see.
No pressure. Can't see her there.
Can't see you there. Okay, so here's the queen cup and what it looks like when she's emerged. So this is the queen cell she's emerged out of, because you can see it's rat-a-tatty on the edges where she's chewed her way out. So that's another sign to look for if you're wondering whether your hive has a queen. If you can't see any evidence, then look for one that's just emerged. And the fact that she's just emerged out of there means there's likely to be a queen just starting to lay, or already gone, or waiting to go on a mating flight. And there's the queen there. So there we go. Jess, our marketing queen bee, will be very happy to know her hive has a queen. So
How long will you leave this hive before inspecting again?
now that I know there's a queen and there's laying eggs, there's no hurry. There's larvae in eggs. There's no hurry to inspect them again. So I'd leave it a couple of weeks.
She's on the move.
She's on the move. The queen often just struts around. She's got quite a different movement to other bees, and it looks like she's gotten a bit camera shy and darted around the other side, and there she is, just at the tip of my finger there. You noticed her body's longer, and she usually doesn't have such a stripy appearance. The wings only come halfway down her body. Not to be confused with drones like this one that have big eyes that touch in the middle.
Just wondering if you ever mark your queens.
I don't personally. I've got a friend who comes and helps me with my apiary, and he does mark queens. So we do have some marked queens, but generally I don't worry about it.
Helga has a great question. She says, you mentioned that when there's no queen, the worker bees may start laying. How did you know it was a queen laying and not workers before you found her?
So generally, if you're looking at the eggs will be on the cell walls or down the bottom, on the cell walls, or sometimes 2 eggs per cell. So that's the way you tell whether it's laying workers or a laying queen. Now, the other one is that they're laying drones, except in really rare circumstances where immaculate conception can happen and the workers can actually lay a female bee that they can raise a queen from, but that's pretty rare. So also the appearance, but if I looked at larvae in the bottom of cells from laying workers, I may not be able to tell whether they're workers or drone at that stage. I'd then be looking for the egg laying pattern, and if they were starting to be capped brood, then you can certainly tell whether they're drones or workers. The drone brood sticks out more proud of the comb surface, whereas the worker brood is nice and flat. So we might just recap. The first thing to do, if you suspect your hive is queenless, is to have a look for eggs or larvae. And if there's no eggs present, there's no larvae present, then you may not have a laying queen, or the laying queen might be in the very early stages. So if you see that, then keep looking through all your frames to try and find eggs or larvae or some signs of brood. If you've left it a long time, then the colony will be quite small. However, in the early stages, you might find there's more honey and more pollen than usual. And the reason why that is because it takes 1 frame of brood and 1 frame of pollen to raise 1 frame, it takes 1 frame of honey and 1 frame of brood to lay. It takes 1 frame of honey, 1 frame of pollen to raise a frame of brood. So you might see an increase in honey and pollen temporarily while the bees don't have any brood to look after. There she is, wandering around. So if you find yourself in a situation where you've done all the right things and you still don't have a queen, then your options are: 1, introduce a frame from another hive that has eggs or larvae under 3 days old, and the queen then, the hive then has the resources to raise a new queen from there. Or you could buy in a queen. So if you buy in a queen, if you can get hold of one, then that's a great way to save your colony, because that queen will be a month ahead of one they're trying to raise. Failing that, to save the last remaining bees, you could merge your colony with another hive using the newspaper technique. However, that's a last resort, and you do risk spreading disease, if there is any, in your weak hive to your strong one. So there's some tips and tricks on how to detect whether your hive's queenless, and also what to do. So we're going to put this hive back together now. Just by easing the frame back. We do not want to damage the queen. Gently, gently, gently. And now we're going to slowly slide the frames across and try and put them back in the original pattern. So we know that this frame came from just beside here. Notice their tone has just changed and they're starting to get a little more aggressive. If that happens, you can add a little bit of smoke to your hive, if your smoke is still going. So now I'm going to put the frames, it's important they stay tight together, and try and respect the same order. If you're introducing frames, then also respect the normal pattern of a hive, where you have honey on the edges, followed by pollen and brood towards the centre.
Cedar, can you just repeat how many days after your new queen has emerged from her cell do you start to check the hive?
So the process, if they raise a queen, goes a total larvae and cap stage of about 16 days. And then from there, she chews her way out, and then she will go on some mating flights. Now, if the weather's great and it's all perfect, she might go straight away, but if it's not, she could wait a week or even 2. So you need to allow about a month from them raising a new queen to have eggs and larvae present. So generally you would wait, if you've introduced a queen, then you could check her in a week and check that she's laying. But if you're letting them raise their own, then you might need to wait a month. So there we go, very happy to find that there is a queen in this hive, and now we can put it back together and leave it a few weeks before we check in and see how the brood is looking. But I'm expecting it to bounce back now. The colony's done a great job of saving itself, which they often do. On rare occasions, however, they are queenless, and the hive will slowly die out unless you do something about it. If you've got any more questions, put them in the comments below. We'll keep answering
Jasmine's asking, do bees not react negatively to foreign bees in their hive?
Bees will react negatively often, and there's debate about that, but if you just grab a whole lot of bees from one hive and dump them in here, they often will fight a bit and you'll end up with some dead bees out the front, so not ideal. So generally, if you're introducing a frame from another hive, you'll shake all the bees or brush the bees off is better, because if there's queen cups on there, you don't want to shake that frame. So brush all the bees off before you introduce that frame with the brood on it.
We did have one more question, and it was, how do you deal with chalk brood in your frames?
Okay, chalk brood is often fixed by two things. Put your hive in the sun. If they've been in the shade, they're more likely to get chalk brood issues. But the next one is introduce a new queen. So the genetics, hopefully next time, is good enough to then clean up the chalk brood and get rid of that out of the hive. Thanks a lot for watching, and tune in again next week, same time, and we'll have something interesting to show you.